Good evening, everyone. My name is Dustin Bracey, and I'm going to walk us through a time series analysis on COVID-19 data in Louisiana. Dr. Henry Walker, if you didn't know, is a CDC incident manager, and I took this quote from a telebriefing on 19 November 2020. So let's talk about the positivity rate. The positivity rate is actually a little bit better measure of strictly measuring positive numbers, because the positive number of tests are just, positive cases are just exploding right now. And so the positivity rate actually helps adjust for those people who have tested positive more than one time. The people that want to go back to work, maybe they've tested 3 times and they've tested positive all 3 times, are kind of inflating the numbers. And this helps kind of adjust for that bias a little bit. The WHO has actually said that the goal is, the rule of thumb is 5%, that we should see positivity rate no more than 5%, or that indicates the unusually high transmission rate, or potentially even a shortage of tests. And so this data, you can take a look here, Louisiana versus U.S. positivity rate and the positive number of tests. I divided the U.S. numbers by 50 to kind of give us an arbitrary comparison with Louisiana against the U.S. And you can see kind of that explosive nature of those positive test measures. So the data I use comes from covidtracking.com, and Louisiana data I'm sourcing directly from the Department of Health website for Louisiana. So let's dive into it. So this univariate stationarity, if I'm just looking at time and no other explanatory variables, Louisiana is showing what looks to be like a strong weekly trend. It looks to be non-stationary, right? The frequency, 0.14 in the Parson window there is heavily, 1/7, heavily weekly. USA doesn't exhibit as much trend. It looks like maybe it could be a monthly trend or a really weak monthly trend. And so we'll kind of look at that here in the next slide. So for Louisiana, I took out that 1 minus B, I differenced the data 1 time. In that middle row, you can see that I'm still showing some correlation. In that bottom row there, I've taken out the weekly trend. I took out that B, 1 minus B to the 7th, and that leaves us with autocorrelations and a realization that looks like white noise to me. So that's going to be good for our models. The USA, I differenced it once, and it looks to me like it could be just white noise. You see a little bit of explosive behavior there in the first couple of weeks, but that's to be expected as we sort out this information. So actually, I didn't mention this, but my data goes from March 11th, which is when the WHO declared the pandemic, to November 11th, which gives us about 8 months of data to look at. All right, so here are my model candidates. You can see the Louisiana, I'm going with an AR8 with a weekly trend, and that's actually over-predicting a little bit on the 90-day forecast, and you can see that it's not exactly following the trend. It gets a little bit out of sync with that 7-day cycle, indicating that maybe it's not perfectly weekly. And then in the 7-day forecast, it's actually under-predicting a little bit, but still a pretty low ASE score there. The USA data, I went with an ARIMA 111, which gives us a non-stationary model, and you can see it's performing fairly well, but not necessarily following the trend, which is kind of to be expected with the the ARIMA behavior. It's just going to model the last observed point into the future. All right, so here are my models. The Louisiana model, 7-day ASE is 0.009, the 90-day is 0.0017, and the AICs are pretty similar between the US and the LA. And the US has got a 0.0003 and a 0.0004, so these are pretty well, pretty well in balance here. And this is my strategy for the main task of this problem.